Welcome to CEO Growth Talks. I'm your host, Angus Robertson, a partner and fractional CMO here at Chief Outsiders. Our topic today is when does it make sense for a CEO to hire a fractional executive? And we'll go through a few examples as well. We have an illustrious panel today. We have two fractional CMOs and area managing partners, and also a fractional chief sales officer. So yes, we have managed to get sales and marketing in the same room. With that, let's introduce our panel. Audrey.
Hi, Adriana Lynch. I am an area managing partner and acting fractional CMO with Chief Outsiders. I have been here for 5 years and loving every minute of it.
Great. Thank you, Audrey. Rich.
Hey, everyone. I'm Rich DePencier. I am a area managing partner here for the Chief Outsiders, and I've been with the company for 5 years.
And we launched our fractional sales capability beginning of this year, and excited to have you on board, Brett. But why don't you intro yourself?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm Brett Keirstead. As the group mentioned, I'm a fractional chief sales officer. I was part of the first cohort for Chief Outsiders in February, and excited to be here with y'all.
Great to have you, Brett. Let's start with you in terms of our first question. Can you talk a little bit about why there is such a thing as a fractional executive and what some of the trends are in the industry that has led to more fractionals?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's a lot of tailwinds on the issue, but there's still a lot of ambiguity. We're different from consultants. Consultants have been around for a while, but fractional is new, and it's part of a big movement. If you think about the proper utilization of assets, think about things like Airbnb, you think about Turo, you think about these Uber, these entities that take an asset and use it to its full capacity, right? We don't need to have it sit idle. We need to use things in the appropriate manner. Well, it was a natural extension to come to the world of fractional executive leadership. So now this trend where we can go in and share ourselves as resources and get business owners and CEOs can use only the most appropriate and necessary amount and not have a lot wasted is just part of an overall trend that's just been going on outside the industry. So executive leadership was a natural place for it to go, and CEOs are taking advantage of that allocation of resources.
That's really interesting. I think you'll speak more to that in your example, a more efficient use of capital. And along those lines, Audrey, what's your experience when working with CEOs? Why do CEOs consider or go the fractional route with their executives?
And because it's actually an incredibly smart move, and I tell you why, because what we have found throughout our experience is that the skill set that an executive, a marketing or sales executive needs to set the long-term strategy and put in place the mechanisms to have that strategy running is a different skill set than the person that has the talent and the passion to run that strategy in the long run. So if you think about it like this, it's almost like you first build the car with the growth engine, as we talk, and then you hire the driver. Those are two very different skill sets. And if you think about it, if you hire the driver first and they don't have a car to ride, everybody fails. So one of the advantages of hiring a fractional before you bring the right talent full-time is that you decrease the risk of a wrong hire, which we all know is incredibly, incredibly expensive, right?
Oh, yes. There's a client I've worked with for a few years now, and in that time, they've gone through 4 marketing executives. So culturally and just as needs change, that can make a big difference for these companies. Well, yeah.
I'll give you an example too, Angus, of exactly what you're saying. I had a client that I worked with for about a year and a half. And the CEO called us, they're in the professional services industry. The CEO calls and said, listen, my head of marketing chair has been a revolving door. I'm not hiring anyone until I know what I'm hiring for.
Right.
Smart CEO. So I came in to figure out what was needed for the company to grow towards their objectives. And what I found out, and I told the CEO, is that their marketing team was treated like Kinkos. Give me this, give me that, give me a picture, give me a color. And what they needed the marketing team to be was a lead generation machine. So it took me about a year and a half to bring them from point A to point B, because that was a big cultural shift for the company. But by the time that the lead generation machine was in place, we could hire a CMO that was an expert on professional services lead gen, and she is thriving there, thriving.
Wow. That's impressive. And Rich, along those lines, when you look at why CEOs go fractional, I think you have an example to share from your experience.
I mean, we've got so many examples, Angus. I was struck by what Audrey just said, and Brett, in terms of you have this capital that you're investing, right? I'd say a common theme that I have found is the reason why a CEO would turn to a fractional resource like us is, of course, you can get the benefit of having a seasoned exec that's been doing this for a very long time. And many come from Fortune 1000 companies, so they come with a lot of value. Getting your feet wet with a resource that you don't have to sign up for a long-term contract with, you only do it month by month and make a small investment, yields dividends all year long. And so most of the assignments that we take on start off with something small, right? Just bite it off. It's a workshop, it's a project, it's a fill-in for someone that's out on leave. I've had some flux and structure. I need some peace, right, in the marketing and sales area. So what they buy is this investment where you get access to us, and we can work 3 or 4 times faster because we're battle proven, right? We've done the work before, and it's very comforting. I have found in every assignment that I've taken there, the board, the C-suite, CFO, any of them feel very comfortable having an executive at the table who can be multifunctional and can look broadly about the business. And so the example I wanted to share with you is in several CPG companies that I come in, we'll need to work right away on plugging a problem, right? We don't have enough leads. We're losing our loyal customers. We need a new marketing plan next year. Whatever that may be, what we bring is industry knowledge, best practices, a slew of network, and we've done it ourselves, so we can roll up the sleeves and do it ourselves and coach and develop other people. So a couple things with that is an example where stepping back and thinking about why is the boat leaking, right? So where are our loyal customers going? Why are they not buying more of us? How do we attract new users into the brand, and what do we need to do there? Those are 2 very different streams of work. And so what we've done several times is help the CEO understand what's the balance in volume and profit between the 2, so that we're investing the right tools and mechanisms to communicate with loyal customers might be very different from what we need to do to attract a new customer to the brand. That's just one example, but applying that outside in really helps the CEO think more broadly about the business and not just the marketing department.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point you bring up, Rich, just in terms of retention versus acquiring new customers. I know you focus more on CPG and B2C, but in the B2B world, it's such a heavy rotation to acquisition. When you come in and work with a new client, how do you assess where to focus? And do you see that often there's not enough marketing attention to retention and supporting those loyal customers?
Every single time, Angus. Because if any of us put ourselves in the role of a CEO, I get it. You need growth, right? You've got numbers to deliver. You've got families to take care of. You got to get the numbers. And so digging that layer deep, oftentimes marketing, to Audrey's point, is off in the corner, just trying to swim, just trying to get stuff out the door and do it. And no one's taking that strategic approach to go back and go, who are we talking to? What are their purchase barriers? Why are they not using us more often? Or frankly, if somebody's new, have they even heard of us before? So in order to create a great marketing plan, you got to dig in deeper, right, at the beginning with insights on who's out there in this customer base and what's happening to them. And oftentimes early on, the CEO, CFO, head of sales, even, they're really excited, right? Because now you're getting more laser focused on generating volume and revenue among the right target audience and not trying to be everything for everybody.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest challenges, as you and Audrey have both highlighted, balancing that strategic motion with the execution bit, because you can't only focus on the execution. So Brett, based on your experience, and how can companies, if they're smaller, build that strategic bone when it comes to their go-to-market? It can be quite expensive.
Yeah. And, if you get a salesperson in the room with a bunch of marketing people, you're asking for controversy. So I'm going to I have one little small comment on it is, I think often we think growth and, we kind of get ourselves in a growth mindset, but, look about the economy right now. There's just as many businesses that are struggling. And, that's growth. In other words, life's great and I want to grow more isn't the only use case here. I like to think of it as fractional folks often are brought in to change the trajectory of the business. The trajectory could be grow faster, it could be stop declining, it could be enter some new market. And so growth is not confined to just a small subset, and so these examples that we've all are trying to give when CEOs consider this is don't just think of it as, well, it's a boom time and I want to boom more. That isn't, in fact, that's probably a small percentage of the use cases. Mm-hmm. In my niche, what I've experienced so far, and as Angus, you're mentioning, is what I'll call smaller organizations, maybe earlier stage. Maybe, if I look at kind of my portfolio, they're often 5 to 15 million B2B. They may be founder owner led, or they may just have had private equity investment. So they're kind of in this state of flux. And historically, they haven't really had an option, but other than to hire somebody full time. It was like, we got to bring in a revenue leader and he or she's going to just come in and take over the business. And it seems fine, like a good idea. But even in my own experience, I realized, kind of to Audrey's example, that it was probably premature. They could have gotten away with a very experienced leader doing very focused work on a smaller scale, like not needing to consume that entire resource and fully burden the expense of that knowledge and expertise. So these small organizations, I've come in and done fractional sales leadership, where I manage a small sales team. I've helped put together a business plan. I've been able to manage marketing in some cases. If they're small enough, you can get a lot of bang for your buck there, as opposed to the default option that they've only had, which is, well, let's go hire some high-priced CSO and see what happens. If you look out there today, the average tenure of a CSO is dropped from 26 to 20 to now close to 18 months. And that's a devastating expense for a small business to go in and hire and get 12, 14 months out of a high-priced CSO. And I think that's more and more the reason to rise of fractional leadership, even in those small market businesses.
Well, Brett, it's so difficult to bring an unknown quantity into the organization at that level of leadership with that level of expense, and you're just hoping
right
things go right.
Right. And look, I mean, the concept of relying on somebody that's done it is it's as old as time, right? But the problem is that I think people tend to overweight that and don't realize that every situation is different. Even if I ran a $7 million startup CSO and turned it into 20, if I go into the next one, it's not the same. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times they just have, I hate to say, almost too much confidence that, well, I made the right hire and I'm going all in on this individual, when they probably could have gotten away with doing a little bit of patient research and working with a fractional to make sure, to Audrey's point before, that they kind of got their story figured out before they go all in.
Yeah. Well, not all approaches to fractional executives are the same. There's many people who operate as something we call single shingles, essentially on their own. And then there's other organizations like Chief Outsiders. Audrey, when you look at Chief Outsiders, what do you see as different about us and where we focus?
For me, the two main things are, first of all, our mentality. We are not consultants. So don't think about Chief Outsiders, fractionals as consultants. We are operators. And what that means is that we roll up our sleeves and we make stuff happen. We all grew through the ranks, like we all started at the very bottom at companies. We have done it, been there, bought the t-shirt at every level. And that's important because as a fractional with us, the mid-sized companies that we often work, we don't have a huge marketing organization. One of my main clients that is, I have been with for 3.5 years as their fractional CMO. The whole marketing department is me and one other person, all two of us, and we brought the revenue from the client from zero to $13.6 million in 2 years. And I say this because that operator mentality is important. The second thing that I think is incredible is what you see in front of you. This panel, which we are part of the tribe. We engage into a process that we call peer reviews, which basically means that at any point in time, if I have an issue, a problem that I can't solve, nobody knows it all. I call on the tribe, and 20, 25 of my colleagues will come and help me think about my client situation. That is unheard of, that type of collaboration. So between our operator mentality and our collaboration, I think it's just, gold standard.
Yeah.
I think so.
The peer reviews that you talk about are always humbling because, as you said, we've all had decades in marketing and working our way through the ranks. But then when you present your problem and present your plan to an audience of 15 or 20 CMOs that have worked at Fortune 1000 or Fortune 500 companies and ask for
a lot of opinions.
You ask their opinions, they'll give it to you, and it's always 10 times better.
Yeah.
After the session is incredible.
Well, Rich, you have experience working at the strategic level, and of course on the operational side as well. Anything you can share here?
I just want to share for those CEOs or C-suite leaders that are on the video with us today. One of the things that we've learned and we're taking away from a lot of this work that probably was something that we underestimated is the power and the legacy that we can leave for your teams in terms of marketing, training, coaching, and development. You don't necessarily go in with that mindset, but what ends up happening is, with all candor, the C-suite doesn't have the experience or the technical knowledge to be the marketing experts, and that's why they rely a lot on agencies or outside people. And so when we come in, we've been developing people for a long time, and they love it. And so where you would anticipate maybe a little bit of a resistance, like, who's this person coming in from the outside and they're going to tell us about marketing and all this kind of thing, it ends up being exactly the opposite. It's an investment that they see that the C-suite's making in them to be able to develop their skills and help them get to the next level. So a lot of the things that we end up leaving is a legacy full of people who are more highly engaged now. They're appreciated. Somebody understands their work, and we can help develop their technical skills and actually help them grow to the next level and or next level of their career aspirations. So you end up leading a lot of these assignments as a mentor of the marketing team that's there. Marketing team now feeling empowered and valued by the CEO. So it's a benefit that I don't think we talk enough about, but it's a real relief for the CEOs and the C-suite.
And it's very fulfilling for us to
sure is
move on and see the team we're working with become, move from directors to VPs or Audrey and Brett, I know you both feel passionately about this, but how do you see sales and marketing aligning, and what are some of the key things to consider there?
Okay, I'll go, Brett. I'll start. I am super excited to have CSOs on board for many reasons. But first of all, I have been in calls with the CEOs where they reach out to us for marketing help. We need more leads. We need more volume. We need more sales. Okay, you need more sales. Talk to me about that. No. You bring the leads. And we'll take care of the rest. Well, actually, I have like one guy that closes 80% of the deals, but I'll talk about that later. No, let's talk about that now, because that alignment is important. So one of the trends, and Brett would be interested to know your point of view on this coming next, but one of the trends that we have seen, and this trend has been confirmed by a study by McKinsey. McKinsey has been doing a biannual study on how B2B businesses approach their decision-making process, which we internal lingo call the customer journey. How do they go from awareness to consideration, to education, to consideration, to the decision to buy, so forth and so on. And historically, especially on B2B, Marketing's job was to generate awareness, top of the funnel, just bring people in. Then we literally throw the ball over the fence to sales, go fetch, right? That is incredibly expensive because the sales team is actually very concentrated and very expensive in closing those deals. So what we see today is what we call the Amazon effect. And the Amazon effect is actually the willing and ability of B2B purchase buyers to self-serve with the digital platforms that we see out there, from awareness to education to consideration. And what does that mean? That means that marketing needs to take responsibility further down in the funnel. And we owe sales better quality leads. So when we pass these leads to sale, they have a high probability of closing. Where does the alignment comes from? So if Brett and I are working together on this, we need to agree on what is a quality lead. And even if we butt heads at the beginning, butting heads and discussing what a quality lead is better than not talking about it and pointing fingers, which is what historically happens. So my thought, I leave you with this thought: marketing has responsibility further down the funnel, and align on the quality leads with sales is super important. Brett, shoot holes on it.
No, I think it's. I mean, I think the misnomer that a lot of organizations take as they think of sales and marketing, to your point, as two distinct things. They're really part of one thing, which is whether it's the ability to acquire new customers or whether it's the ability to grow existing customers. It's really one thing. I think we've just set up the organizations in such a manner that it seems like they're inherently in a competitive position. And I've been a chief revenue officer in small businesses, and often that is one function. So I have sales and marketing, and just get exposed to that and you'll realize, well, you got to solve all those conflicts, right? It's like there is no such thing as sales and marketing. It's one revenue function. So I think what an organization like ours is trying to do is to show, solidarity, if you will. But really, if I was advising the CEO, I would say, look at the function as a function, the desire to acquire new businesses, and there's stages along the way that certain people have expertise over others. But if you're setting them up in some kind of competitive position, you're asking for trouble. Because to your point, you could, talk it all out you want, but then if things get hard and you're a fragmented organization, you don't think of it as one process, it doesn't matter how friendly you are. Somebody's going to assign responsibility. So I think it just starts with the understanding that we're just doing one thing and applying experience and expertise based on our background to one part of that process.
Yeah.
Well, we have a question from Richard, who's a fractional CFO. He said his engagement, because it's focused on numbers and standard processes, can be fairly efficient in terms of the number of clients that he's able to engage. How can we take, or a fractional CMO or fractional CSO, take on that leadership role? Are we constrained in how many clients that we can work with? How about you, Rich? What do you think?
So I think the question is, if you had a business opportunity like this and you wanted to engage with chief outsiders, how many clients can we pick up at one time?
Yeah, individually as a fractional CMO, and then I guess overall.
Sure. Well, I think the first thing we would want to do is sit down and ask a lot of really great questions to understand what it is that the business need is and help you customize that. So not everything fits for everybody, and we would curate that with you. So identify, do we have a project at hand that's a few months, or do we need a certain amount of hours per week, a couple of days a week? What type of leadership would be most beneficial to help you grow those numbers? And then make sure we make the right fit for you. So we're pretty flexible. You're only limited to 1 month at a time for billing. So if it ever gets to the point where you're like, you know what, I got this, we're out and everybody's happy. But we can also extend our engagements over a longer period of time and get our hands dirty and help you actually implement those numbers and create a plan and execute the plan. So it's a little broader than that. I would just say that we're flexible to try to migrate to whatever that business need is.
Yeah. And I would say inherently that fractional CFOs can work with more clients than fractional CMOs or CSOs, just because of the nature of the work. That's been my experience anyway. One other question I wanted to ask you, Audrey, is a lot of more and more companies, especially companies in, well, I guess it's all revenue ranges, but a lot of the companies we work with are between 10 and $100 million. We also work with companies, enterprise companies over $1 billion or over $2 billion in revenue. But often companies are owned by private equity. Does this fractional model work with private equity?
Oh, this is a brilliant question, Angus. Private equity have embraced the fractional model for many reasons. And I would say, I think they embraced Chief Outsiders in particular. I think that we worked with over 100 private equity companies in the last couple of years because of that mentality of us being operators. So if you think about it, when a private equity company acquires a portfolio company, the first thing they need to do is to take a look at who's the management team. And that becomes the first concern. And you don't want to have a concern. You want to run a business. So they often call on Chief Outsiders to say, I need a CMO Monday morning, 8 o'clock on that chair. And they know that we put our operator's hat on and we're going to run the business and do everything else that we have talked in this call, right? But also, one of the things that has emerged quite strongly on private equity companies is call on us for due diligence. Because think about it this way, and for the fractional CFOs on the call, I would love to see if you agree with me. By and large, the due diligence is a financial due diligence, which has to be for sure. But the financial due diligence is based on cash flow projections of the future that are based on projection of sales. And those sales are driven by the top line growth that the marketing activities drive. Shouldn't you look really closely to see if those marketing activities, those marketing plans, the agreements with the vendors, if everything is really solid? So the private equity companies have been calling on us more and more for due diligence, which really makes the future easier for them. So it's a beautiful match.
I agree with you, Audrey. It's valuable to have experienced functional executives double check the numbers and the programs and the levers, the value drivers behind the numbers. I've been in situations when I was working full time where we acquired companies and the pipeline didn't quite turn out to be quite as rosy as it had seemed. So being able to dive into those marketing programs and the sales capabilities certainly can help validate the financials. Well, thank you everybody for Rich, Brett, and Audrey for sharing your perspectives and your stories working as fractional executives. And Brett, now it's been almost a year that you've been with Chief Outsiders as a fractional chief sales officer. What's your experience? How do you like being a fractional executive?
It's been amazing personally in the sense that I have, really strong control of my personal schedule. I kind of have certain clients, kind of organized in a way that's consistent with the lifestyle that I want. But in terms of my relationship with CEOs, it's great because, I feel a freedom, a freedom between our relationship between me and the CEO that has me on board to express things in just another level of transparency that maybe I thought I was before. But, when you're only working for one person in your whole life and that's your job at one company, I can think even the best intention I had to be as open and honest is always twinged with, ooh, but I need this job, and so really now I wanted to be spread out and advise and help and engage with many different businesses on a personal, intimate, and honest level. And that's probably the number one takeaway of being fractional is if you do it right, you just feel free to offer the advice that they really need without the encumbering of, oh gosh, what if I lose my job? So it's been a great experience. And, it really, in that regard, I think for CEOs, it's great to have somebody, whether it's a coach or an advisor or a fractional that's really willing to tell you the truth that they think you need to hear for your business.
Great. Thank you, Brett. Well, Rich and Audrey, any last takeaways that you have for our audience?
I thought Brett summarized that beautifully. I'd want to say the same thing. It's a very enriching experience when you can have that type of relationship with the CEO and the C-suite and just speak authentically and real about the business. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I would just remind everybody what Rich said, which was, listen, a part of our passion and our job is to leave the team that you engage us with better than what we found. And everybody that I know here at Chief Outsiders has a passion to see talent growing. So we hope to be not a competition, but an incredible added value to your organization. And this comes from the heart.
Well, thank you everybody for attending, and thank you to our panel. If you are interested in learning more about fractional marketing or fractional sales leadership, please feel free to reach out to Audrey, Brett, or Rich, or Chief Outsiders overall. We look forward to seeing you on our next Chief Outsiders Growth Talks. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.